Bing bong. I am live with another edition of the State of Bitcoin podcast. First, I'd like to thank everybody that sent boosts and everything like that through the Fountain app. If you're listening, I would definitely recommend using a Podcasting 2.0 app, as the value for value is great stuff. And if you feel so inclined, you could also leave me a review anywhere you get your podcast. But I got a very special guest. I met him at BitBlock Boom. His name is Fussler. He runs the BTC Van City Meetup over in Vancouver, Canada. Oh, with those sick shirts. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can get it and see some of those. So Fussler, man, how you doing? Long time no talk.
Should probably unmute myself. Yeah, man, I'm doing really good, dude. It's good to see you again in person, sort of. At least I see your face.
Yeah, exactly. It's always good to connect and get even if it's just over Zoom or anything like that. But how are things going over in Vancouver? How's the meetup going? And tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. I kind of already spoiled it a little bit, but about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm just one of those plebs, just an average Joe, trying to live my life here in Vancouver, and decided to create a little meetup group here in the city about 6 months ago, and they've been going really good. I guess like the quick story is there wasn't really a group that I found when I searched for. I was just a couple of years into Bitcoin, not like an OG, but was learning, on Spaces and podcasts and YouTube and everything, right? And you're just kind of in the digital realm forever. And then I was like, I'd like to meet some human beings that are also kind of like-minded and talk about this thing that's Bitcoin. So that was kind of like in the middle of like COVID and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. So there was nothing really happening. Like, oh, I'll just wait. Kind of waited, and then I looked again, and I found one group, Vancouver Bitcoiners. They're awesome, really good friends of mine now. But they kind of more on the dev side usually. So more of their stuff is kind of more tech related, and they do cool workshops, and so they're awesome. But I just felt I kind of come from DJing and event production is kind of my what I used to do. So I was like, oh, I think there's another fit and another need, I think, and fit for another meetup that's more just kind of more discussion, not necessarily like technical related, and more like just kind of fun. Come have some beers. There's, I bring DJs, and shout out to Das Record. He's a really solid Bitcoiner here in Vancouver as well. He's super knowledgeable. He's a doctor, so he's got big brain. So he's DJing. He's like DJing the events, and it's just kind of snowballed. The first one had like 30 people, 40. No, actually, sorry, we had like 50-ish people, and then it went to 70, and then suddenly I started getting some sponsorships, and ShakePay jumped on board, and shout out to them, CoinKite, and so once I was kind of had some sort of backing there a little bit, kind of reached out to some names, and Jeff Booth did the next one, and then Greg Foss did the next one, and then Samson Mao did the next one. So it just kind of snowballed really quick, and we're pulling 180 people kind of thing to like Jeff and Greg, and I think there was 100 plus at Samson as well. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, and one that I'm enjoying a lot, though. It's been cool meeting a lot of awesome people.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. You just started this meetup, like 6 months or so ago, and then you're already getting some huge names in the space. But let's back it up a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your Bitcoin origin story, the orange pilling, kind of how you found it. And then you already kind of went into, I guess, the story as to why you got into building the events. But, what brought you to Bitcoin? Was there something, somebody pointed it out to you, somebody kept pushing you, hey, take a look at this, or did you just kind of get bored one day during the and find it?
You know what, it's kind of weird. It was I literally had a shoebox of money that I had collected from doing certain things, and it was sitting in a closet, and it was always bugging me that it was just sitting there, because I mean, I'd never really, dove into like what is money and all that kind of stuff, but I knew inflation was a thing, and I knew the money was losing value, and I knew it was just sitting there, and it was a pretty decent sized stack, and I just knew that it was not doing anything good, just sitting there doing nothing and losing value, right? So I decided that I should invest it somehow. So I kind of chunked it into the bank and was just kind of going down the stock market road. I'm like, I'm just gonna throw it into some different different stocks and whatever. And so that's what I started to do. And I kind of started to do that. I don't mind a little risk. So I was jumping into a lot of like mushroom, like psychedelic, mushroom companies. I'm like, oh, that's the next one. Getting crushed in all of them. But so I, threw a bunch into there. And as I was doing that, I recalled Bitcoin from years ago. I'd never paid any attention to it. I'd never given it, a proper, moment and like read about it and kind of learned what it was. And so I decided, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just throw some into that Bitcoin thing that I remember from some years ago or whatever, And then, so I did that. I created the account, had the X amount that I was going to put into Bitcoin. Had no idea I didn't even know what Ethereum was. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what all these other shit casino or all these shit coins were. And as soon as I'm looking at a screen, I don't know what I'm looking at realistically. I'm like, wow, Bitcoin's really expensive. Look at all these other fancy, shiny, stupid things. So what did I do? Picked 20 of those, and what I had left over was like basically nothing. I'm like, I'll put that into Bitcoin. And then that kind of started the path into crypto in the world. And then I started getting, really actually doing some research and listening to some voices in the space. Preston Pysh was one of them. He was kind of one of the first ones that really like kind of resonated. And I'm like, I should probably be looking more into this and see what I actually had put my money into, and then just fast forward over, better part of a year basically. And by the end of that first year, I was like, okay, I've made a huge mistake. All these other things are fucking crap and they're garbage. Ditched all those, put it into Bitcoin, and then got serious about it and really started pumping everything into it and pulled my RSPs out of the bank, told them to pound sand, pretty much put it all into Bitcoin and kind of never looked back. So that's how I got into it. I just bought it and then started to learn about it and then realized all the shit ones were stupid and you should buy the one that's going to replace the world,
It's funny you say that because I think a lot of Bitcoiners kind of, almost forget about that part of their journey, where they were shitcoining a little bit, and maybe they get the bad rap for the toxic Bitcoin maximalist or what have you. But I think everybody that kind of got in, or most people that I've met or interviewed, were a little, I guess, shitcoiny, crypto curious, or whatever you kind of want to say about it. But eventually we all kind of find the way and realize that it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. But
yeah.
well, on that
Well,
note,
some don't though. I've got friends that are still on that stupid fence. I'm like, they all like, well, no, like Bitcoin is the one, but I'm like, yeah, but you're still trying to make dollars. I'm trying to get rid of dollars. You're trying to make more dollars. So there's a difference.
yeah, I mean, it seems like it takes a lot of people, maybe something like getting burned or a Luna fiasco or some shit like that. So I mean, I hope that they avoid those kind of things, because I don't like to see people lose value, lose money, and
Yeah,
for everybody to go straight into Bitcoin. But I think like part of the journey is finding it yourself and kind of diving into it that way.
totally.
I think eventually that's probably going to happen for majority of people. Is there going to be more cryptocurrencies that are being made now, next year, the year after, that are quote unquote better than Bitcoin? That's definitely going to happen. It's always going to be a marketing scheme or scheme to try to
Yeah,
get people to invest in it. But I think like at the end of the day, it's really the proof of work that people in the space are putting in, like yourself. And that brings me to the meetup. You said you've been doing it about 6-7 months or so, like less than a year, but you've already had some of these huge names in the space. Granted, they're Canadian, so maybe
It
they're
was
trying.
low-hanging fruit, but we got some serious fruit in Canada, so obviously that's I'm going after those guys immediately.
Yeah,
And yeah.
exactly. I'm not trying to discredit it or anything, but like, how did that happen? And, tell me about that experience about getting some of those big guys in, very early on, to kind of get your, almost catapult the start of your meetup.
Yeah, dude, it was really easy. If I'm being honest. I mean, hello, Jeff. Would you like to speak at my meetup? Yes. Cool. Sweet. It's the state. Okay, I'll be there. Okay. It was pretty much like that. Same with Greg. Actually, Greg was the first one, and then it was Jeff. So, yeah, man. I mean, kind of. I guess once the first one was there, kind of under the belt, and it exceeded my expectation. Like I was hoping to meet like 10 people, 20 people. Like if I had 20 at that first one, I thought that was going to be really, really solid. And there was like 50 or 60. So I'm like, okay, well that's 3.5x times what I was expecting for people. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's a need for this here, like more than I even thought, and more people, same thing, like I just want to meet some more Bitcoiners. Like just want to meet them in person. And so that first one kind of went off without a hitch. And like, I should probably say like the first one we had Seb Bunny. Okay, so he rolled down from Whistler. He's partners with Greg and James Lavish and Daz V from Australia and a couple others, I think, in the lookingglasseducation.com. So check that out. It's a kind of financial literacy platform that you can go. It's like free courses. They put out content now for teachers and things to kind of use in their own like schools or whatever. So he was one of the guys that came, like, and just awesome guy. We're good friends now, and we've went for dog walks and stuff. So he's awesome. So he was one of them. The other one was Colin Sullivan from Mint Green. And when I was figuring out who I should ask to be at this first meetup, I remembered the story from roughly a year before of a company called Mint Green, a company that was partnered with the city of North Vancouver, which is where I live. So I'm in North Van right now. And I remember that they were a Bitcoin mining company and they were going to like heat homes or something. So I kind of like found that story, got in touch with Colin and just like, listen, I'm doing a meetup. I'm starting this thing. Like, would you speak? And he's like, absolutely. So he came.
The thing about Bitcoin is like, a lot of even the big names, no matter who you are, if you reach out, a lot of times those big names are, big people that are kind of intimidating maybe to reach out to and ask. They're pretty open and supporting the plebs and supporting the movement. And I think that's
absolutely
one of the great things about the space. So tell us about the next one, what you got planned for it, and when it's supposed to be, so people that are listening could come in and join.
Sure. Yeah. So actually that next one was supposed to be yesterday. And actually at BitBlock Bloom, when we were there, another Bitcoiner who's been in the space for a long time, who I'd also heard on Spaces quite a bit. And he's got a little podcast too. I don't know how, or like a YouTube channel, but not sure how active he's been recently, but and it's Bitcoin Mechanic. So he's on Tone Vay's show often as well, and again another super brain kind of thing, and learned a lot from him just on Spaces on Twitter and stuff. So I bumped into him at BitBlock Bloom in Austin and just kind of chatted to him, and just and I knew he was also sort of local. He's on Vancouver Island, so he's a ferry away, and said maybe we could get you at one day, and he was all for it. And so we booked that, and he was supposed to be yesterday. Unfortunately, the venue, they do like a month-long like Halloween thing where you can go in and they've got it's like a whole thing, like you bring kids or do whatever, and they've got a whole maze, and it's 2 venues and outdoor, so it's like a really big production that they do. So we were trying to kind of squeeze it in on the Tuesday sort of before, but there were some just logistical issues. They needed the time to set up, or otherwise it would kind of screw them for the month. So so we postponed. So I'm gonna do November 11th. I should check that. Is that the date? I think so. November 11th will be the next one. And I think Bitcoin Mechanic will probably still do it. He's going to just confirm his schedule when we get a little bit closer to. The other fellow that I reached out to, another big name that said he would be a part, is Preston Pish. So that's probably going to be remote. He's like Pennsylvania, I think, or like East Coast. So but he said reach out to me early November and let's set it up. So I don't know if that means reach out early November and he's down for the 11th, but I should probably touch base and see if he'd be down to do it. So that's kind of one of the sticks in the fire. So we'll see what happens there. And there's lots to choose from, man. And I think I'll take a break in December and kind of get through Christmas and stuff, and then fire up again in the new year. So that's the plan anyway.
That's awesome. Now, are these events free to join? Do you stream them, via Zoom or something along those lines too? How can people access it if, maybe they're not in the Vancouver area?
Yeah, so that's the next phase. That's happening. Shout out to Murphy, Murdoch Media. He's been helping the Vancouver Bitcoiners stream their BitDevs one. And Reverend Hoddle as well, who I think he was in Austin for a while. I think he's kind of a nomad. I think he cruises in, but he's in Vancouver now area. So both of those guys are got some streaming technology sort of assistance, because just one more thing that I don't want to deal with. But I do want to stream them. So so the live stream I think will probably happen in November. We have been recording the last talks. I did have some camera issues on the Greg one, I think. I'm still figuring that out, but you can so the other person I should give a shout out to that helped with the Samson one is Kinetic Finance, Julian. He's got a really good podcast as well, and he kind of hosted or like kind of moderated the conversation with Samson, and he brought his camera, so that's already live. So Kinetic Finance on YouTube, you can go and watch that whole discussion, and you should. It was a pretty good one. As far as I wanted it to be free. I ran into an issue, so I create the meetups on meetup.com, and the first three were free or four were free. I think the first one that I decided to charge was the Samson, $6, not a lot of money. The reason was I was having an issue with the amount of RSVPs that you get. So if anyone's listening, by the way, or watches this in the future, if there isn't a meetup in your city, you should create one. And if there is, just start going to them and just support it, and lend a hand or whatever, and kind of get involved in that community. I just lost my train of thought though. Why did I just say that? Because meetups. Yeah. So that's where I host the event and create the event itself. So what was happening, so the venue that I'm hosting these at, shout out to the Beaumont Studios, they can hold 200 people, and I was getting RSVPs, like 240 RSVPs for the Jeff Booth event, and I was like scared, because I'm like, if all these people show up, what do I do? So that's a problem. But what ends up happening is, a bunch don't show up, like 50, 60, 70 don't show up. Then I have a wait list that I'm like scared to let them in on the meetups thing, because I don't know, so I couldn't plan properly, and it was not easy to kind of know how many people are actually going to show up. So just adding like a little charge just sort of got rid of the fluff, so to speak. So yeah, whatever. $6. Can't afford $6, but it is bear market. You want to buy Bitcoin, go for it. But yeah, I did that, and I think it worked better because every single person that paid showed up, and I knew that number, and it was easy for me to like plan around that, right? So so I mean, meetups. I think YouTube's probably the one avenue where we'll host the stuff afterwards, but I think live streaming is coming on board as well. So we'll live stream it and record it, obviously. So hopefully moving forward, we've got that content kind of locked down, and people can hop on and listen live and or watch it after the fact. So
there we go. And yeah, if anybody's in the Vancouver area that can help out with getting those logistic things set up, feel free to reach out to at BTC Van City, because I know that stuff is a lot, and you're doing it alongside your day job. So, good on you, and feel free to support a pleb whenever you can. And I will second that notion. If you're in a city with a meetup or anything along those lines, definitely go out and support it, because meeting plebs, even if you're a little nervous or don't want to be that guy that's going all these Bitcoin things, it's really good to network and kind of talk with these like-minded people. And these people are putting in a lot of work, usually alongside their day jobs. So and just doing everything they can to kind of support the space and everything like that. But on that note,
100%, man. Yeah, like people, go support them or create one. There should be a meetup in every city, really. I think across the planet. So if there isn't one, like like we just kind of discussed, like 6 months ago, I just thought about it and I'm like, I guess I'll just do it. Let's see what happens. And here we are. So that can happen to you anywhere. If I think most cities can probably host a meetup. So it's pretty easy. Like the start, the concept's easy. You just pick a venue. Go to meetups.com. It's $30 a month for the thing, whatever. And then you just create your group and people will start joining the group. You just put the date. This is the place, show up. And, pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously as it grows, there's a lot more work and things that go into it, but it's doable, man. If you build it, they will come, I think.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. If they build it, they will come. So I'll echo that as well. So, but on that note, there is a lot of great things going on in this space, even though, like you mentioned before, it is a bear market as far as price goes. But there's a lot of things off chain that I'd like to talk about, and maybe a couple of things on chain. The first big story that I'm seeing right now is that Google, if you don't know Google, Google it, the big, internet company, is now accepting Bitcoin and crypto to a lesser extent for their cloud services. So they're partnering with Coinbase, who Coinbase is going to be their custodian for accepting those payments, but it's going to start in 2023. The cloud services aren't, their main portion of their business. It's only about 8% of their overall revenue, but 8% of $1 trillion company is nothing to scoff at all. So, what do you think about a lot of these companies starting to accept Bitcoin as payment? Do you think, a lot of these companies are going to start to follow suit because Google is such a big name? And, what is your kind of inclination and first reaction to Google accepting Bitcoin as payment for their cloud services? You're on mute too, so if you're going through, there you go.
Thanks. I mean, I guess I think it ends up being a positive, like long term. Like I think it does help adoption. A company of that size, even though it's crypto, I think that's the only downside. I mean, it's too bad it wasn't just Bitcoin, but I think it does in the long term probably help adoption and get other, if Google's doing it, maybe we should, sort of thing. There's it's pretty big fish in the in the sea, so to speak. So I think I think it's time will tell. We're gonna see. I mean, I haven't actually like read the full story and seen like exactly what the details are of it, just pretty much the headline and kind of what you just said. So, but I think just looking at it from like an adoption lens, I think it probably helps other companies maybe start to look into it a little more and think and maybe follow suit and accept them as well. So we'll see. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, I don't necessarily like that. Some of these big companies like a BlackRock or some of these others maybe are like scooping up more and kind of taking away from the plebs. But I think at the end of the day, if Google is accepting Bitcoin, it also takes somebody paying in Bitcoin. So I still think like we're still a little ways away from that kind of transactional, I guess, viewpoint. So I think a lot of plebs that are coming in now are more so looking at it as, we're in a bear market, stack as much as you possibly can, and don't necessarily spend it. Where the way I view it is, if I'm purchasing something and I have the option to buy in Bitcoin, normally I'll just buy the sats like while I'm sitting there right before and just spend them right away, because to me it doesn't matter what I send, but it also helps what they receive, right? Because then they don't get that 3% fee. Everybody knows about the Lightning Network and all that kind of stuff if they're listening to this show. But I think like you said, it's just another headline that's out there that more people are going to kind of get exposed to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And the more exposure, the better at the end of the day. But I don't like a lot of these big companies kind of getting that, scooping up a lot of sats if they will. Granted, I don't think they're going to accept too many or get too many payments in Bitcoin, or maybe some of these shit coins or whatever. Maybe you'll have somebody that'll kind of some big company that'll do it for headlines or something along those lines. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing company or a marketer or a CEO or anything like
No,
that.
sir.
So any of those, headlines or anything like that, it just is another touch point for somebody. And I think the more touch points that you have, the more people that'll get curious and maybe buy into Bitcoin. Maybe they dabble into the shit coins and get burned, and then they finally become a Bitcoin maxi. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they do their own research and just become a Bitcoin maxi off the bat. I don't really know. But either way, I think it's going to push more people towards Bitcoin. And I think at the end of the day, that's the positive that comes out of here. Um,
Yeah,
and so I think
it's
like
crazy, man. Like a headline like that 2 years ago, that would have been like a fucking $5,000 day. So we're like, didn't even, not even a movement. I haven't checked the price in a couple days. What are we doing? We're at a 19, still chilling there. But yeah, when that headline, I'm like, oh, let's go see, and nothing. There's nothing.
yeah, exactly. And I think like a lot of these headlines aren't really doing much for the price, which is interesting. And we'll get to that a little bit later because we're seeing more companies offer custodial services. We got BNY Mellon, which is the
Yeah,
oldest American bank, is now offering, their
custody.
clients custodian services. So similar to like a Coinbase, a Celsius, a BlockFi, they're going to be your Bitcoin custodian. Granted, I don't know, like, from the articles that I read, I don't know how they're going to be storing this Bitcoin, whether it's they're going to be storing it in cold storage for their clients, or they're going to do something like Google's doing and partner with a Coinbase. But, at the end of the day, it's another thing. It's another touch point where they're giving more accessibility to Bitcoin. They're offering their clients Bitcoin. And I think, the kind of underlying story that this doesn't really, say is that a lot of these clients of this bank are probably, asking for Bitcoin. And so, that's why they're probably like, all right, we got to start to look into it. So, do you think like, it's going to be something where you go to your bank? I'm not sure any of the big giant banks in Canada, but maybe like a Chase Bank or a Capital One or something along those lines. Do you think, eventually all of these banks are going to start to offer some sort of custodial service for whether it's like a JP Morgan or what have you, for Bitcoin, for their clients to kind of, keep that adoption going, and maybe, at the end of the day, keep the need up for some of these, I guess, banks, because, at the end of the day, some people might not trust themselves to do some of these custodial services.
So my first question on it, I've had a pretty ridiculous week, like fiat mining work wise. So again, another story I didn't like dig into, but my first question, has it been specified, like, is that real Bitcoin, or are we talking paper Bitcoin? That's first, there's like the first thing that like I'm curious about. That's one thing that I'd be curious to read. I don't know, did it say in that story, or is it just
Yeah,
they just
so like I said, they didn't specify like how they're going to be storing this Bitcoin. So I'd like to give them the benefit of doubt and say it's not going to be, but I know a lot of these services are issuing a lot of this paper Bitcoin. Um,
mm-hmm.
I'm assuming at this point, as many places that offer it, I'd be shocked to not see, maybe close to that 21 million fully issued at this point, and people just kind of issuing paper Bitcoin. But, like I said, I don't know. So it's all speculation at this point. The
Yeah.
articles that I found and the release that I found didn't specify how they're going to do it. And I don't think that they're offering it just yet. I think that they're going to start that, at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And I guess to the second part of your question, yes, I don't think BNY Mellon, I don't think they just decided to do this. They're being asked, right? I think that's where most of the pressure is. People want exposure to this thing, right? And again, different levels. Maybe they don't know how to self-custody themselves. They just want exposure to it. So, but I think these things are, things are coming up and it's bubbling, and people want this. They want to be in some of these asset classes, whether it's crypto or Bitcoin. But hopefully they end up in Bitcoin and don't get burned on the other shit. But yeah, I think fast forward a few years, I'd be I think you'd be any bank would be missing an opportunity to make fees and etc. on offering this to their people. So I think they're being asked for it, and I think that's why it's becoming more of a thing here as we kind of keep trucking along here every 10 minutes. So yeah.
TikTok next block. So I do think it's interesting though that a bank is starting to offer these services, because although the plebs and what have you have kind of gotten into the whole, I guess, learning about economics and the Austrian economics theory and everything like that, we're still having clown world kind of out there. We had the former Fed Chair Ben Bernanke win the Nobel Prize for introducing QE, which many of us know it as money printing, during the pandemic. And to me, it just seems wild and kind of almost like tone deaf at this point, because of the massive amounts of inflation that's going on. Not only in the United States but globally. Granted, a lot of it is probably due to the supply side issue, and not necessarily all of the money printing. But I mean, you can't say that when you add 60% of the money supply in such a short period of time, that the move was justified. So do you think like we're still kind of a far away from when it comes to like the academic side, and maybe the general bankers, the heavy fiat miners? Do you think like we're still kind of a far away from them adopting it, and they're just kind of lost cause? Or do you think eventually everybody will kind of come around to Bitcoin, and kind of see the light, I guess?
Well, I think over a long enough horizon, everyone has Bitcoin at some point. You're gonna get it when your time is right, whether you want it or not, right? So yeah, I think that whole story, I think, just perfectly in line with this clown world that we are in. Do you feel like we're in a different parallel universe? Like, I feel like it happened like around like Trump getting like elected. I feel like we've just never. I swear to God, we're in just some parallel thing. I don't know what world we're living in, but
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Bitcoiners and like everybody else are just like two different, like they're living two different lives, and they see everything like, so differently. And I think like that's kind of the beauty of what Bitcoin brings, is it makes you question a lot of things, makes you question the status quo, question, almost everything that's going on. And at the end of the day, that's kind of where you realize like, all right, this Nobel Prize thing is absolute bullshit and it's just media headlines. And so, I
it's
mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that point.
yeah. I mean, he said that the Fed's balance sheet would be reduced, that economic growth would pick up, and that quantitative easing would be temporary. That obviously all turned out to be complete bullshit. And what I think one could argue is policies worsened wealth inequality more than anybody else. So I don't know how he gets I don't know how he gets the Nobel Peace Prize for doing that, but here we are, hence my clown world statement. So
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Weird
yeah.
one.
I mean, it seems like more and more things that just keep happening make you question like what's going on. Like, we have this. It seems like academics are kind of like praising his move for kind of, yeah, like you said, like separating or increasing that wealth gap. Because whenever there's inflation, that's the quote unquote quiet killer, where assets go up, but also goods and services go up. And who owns assets? The rich and the wealthy. And the middle class and the poor don't necessarily have those assets to kind of benefit from a lot of that inflation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, luckily Bitcoin has a very low barrier to entry. You don't need to buy one Bitcoin at a time in order to, quote unquote, invest in Bitcoin or hold Bitcoin. You can buy, 5 cents worth, I think is like the cheapest amount on Strike maybe right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you could just go in and start off there and, just DCA and chill. And then eventually you'll thank yourself down the road. But obviously not
You,
financial advice or anything like that, as always.
yeah.
But, yeah, I
Like
mean,
I always thought the Nobel Peace Prize was like something, legitimate. And I feel like, at least in Bitcoin, sphere now, like I feel like that's like that was the last time that I'll pay attention to it. Like I feel like it's literally been like ruined and tarnished. Like how does that individual get that prize when you just look at where we're at, and it's his policies that got us to where we are. So yeah, I feel like Nobel is not so noble anymore, I guess.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think, it's not only that, we're seeing companies kind of go off the rails, so to speak, and kind of get far away from just, what the everyday person is accepting. We're having a lot of companies go quote unquote woke. There's kind of the movement go woke, go broke kind of thing, I think, where people are kind of resisting that movement, which I like a lot to see. But I mean, we're seeing companies like PayPal. They had a leak of that they were going to charge a censorship fee,
But
essentially.
that was just an accident, Brandon. They accidentally, it wasn't supposed to be. Fuck off.
I know, and I can't believe it, and it's like one of those things. So for those who haven't seen it, it's essentially they were going to fine people up to $2,500 for sending, posting, or publishing any messages or content or materials that present a risk to user safety or well-being or contain misinformation. So obviously it's super broad, but I mean, we've seen people are countries kind of force the hand to freeze bank accounts and other things like that, and now we're seeing a company that's supposed to be very business friendly. It allows you to send invoices very easily. Small businesses use it all the time, and now we're seeing that they quote unquote accidentally, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
release this thing about how they're essentially trying to censor people. And I think the even more fucked up part is that they're trying to control other people's businesses. And I think, like, we're getting deeper and deeper in that clown world. And I don't know if like we're gonna get out anytime soon. I think, like, you know, there's going to be resistance and pushback, but there's still gonna be companies that kind of try to thread the needle and like sneak these things into the terms and services and things like
Yeah.
that, because people don't necessarily read them. So, on that note, like, what do you kind of think about these platforms? Do you think they're just pushing and making a better case for Bitcoin as we keep going along? Or do you think, there's still kind of a necessity and that they're still going to kind of find their way to weasel around and make some of these shitty policies for people?
100% is pushing the narrative of Bitcoin and why we should be on a Bitcoin standard. I think it just piggybacks on top of when we had the Freedom Convoy and all that stuff, and those companies getting hijacked and taken over for trying to donate to these people that are protesting. It's just, again, I'll say clown world again. It just feels like we just keep trudging. What's the word? Trundling, whatever.
We're trying to say here.
Perusing. There's like a word for like walking down the road, like just do. So whatever that word is, you just kind of keep going down the path of this, this path, and I don't know why. PayPal's private, right? Like I think it was public, and then didn't eBay buy it like years ago, I think. So that's a private company doing that. Like, even if you gave them the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't supposed to be published, okay, it still was written, it's still being talked about, they were thinking about doing it. Whether or not they were going to move forward with it at this moment, it's still being discussed in their, at the highest levels, to add that stuff into their terms and stuff. So regardless if it was an accident and it shouldn't have been published, whatever, it still came from PayPal. It's still it's still what, like, your private company gonna fine people for posting their thoughts? Like,
Well, they are a public company, but still, I mean, it's like it's a public company that I don't know if I wonder if their stock price. I didn't track it, but I'd be curious to see if it kind of like crashed or anything like that during that time or from that announcement. Because I saw the movement going around Twitter, like people were just deleting their accounts and kind of moving everything
Yeah.
off their platform, and rightfully so. And like I said before, I think it's going to be kind of this thing where it's go woke, go broke kind of thing, where people are going to just start moving their money away from a lot of these companies and start to move towards Bitcoin, which Bitcoin just keeps kind of chugging along, or I don't even know. I got tripped up on it too, but
I think I was trying to say chugging, and I was mixing it with. I think trundling's a word. Trundling definition.
I don't know. Maybe it's a Canadian term, but either way, we got Joey.
To convey or move in a wagon or a cart or other wheeled vehicle. Trundle. Yeah, see, trundle. I was right.
There we go. There we go. And then
Shout out to Joey there. What's up, Joey?
yeah, we got Joey in here, the Fussla. That's a great nickname. You should open up with that. I mean, you got the DJs and everything like that. What are you, DJ Fussla or something like that?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's awesome. That's awesome. But as these things kind of trug along, we're still having Bitcoin successfully keep going on, even in a bear market. And I think the most bullish thing that I've seen so far is that the Bitcoin mining hash rate has hit an all-time high. I believe it hit an all-time high yesterday. I don't know if it hit another one again today, but this simply means that more and more miners are coming online. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin mining has to be profitable. And the two things that make Bitcoin mining profitable is being able to find cheap energy and the Bitcoin price being elevated so they can sell, to kind of mitigate those costs and, maybe make some fiat on it. But at the end of the, at the end of the day, the Bitcoin price is down. And when that price is down and they might still have that cheap energy, they might not be able to be making as much profit as before or any profit at all. And so we're just seeing miners kind of come on online and see the value in getting these cheaper sats. So, is this making you bullish as well? Or am I just kind of like, I guess, stretching and reaching through the tea leaves? What do you think about all these miners kind of coming online and continuing to mine Bitcoin during this bear market?
I mean, I'm still surprised that it makes me bullish. I think it's good. I think, yeah, it's down, but we've been holding this, 17 to 20 sort of like range now for like since when? Like maybe like June sort of thing, maybe like beginning of June. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'll go back to I'm just a pleb, man. I'm stoked on the cheap sats. I hope it stays here for longer. I want to just keep stacking, and hash rate keeps going up. So be it. More miners are coming on board. I think that's a good thing. And we know we're just in a, like, I'm going to say clown world again, but I mean that's where we're at. Like, I'm surprised that we haven't gone lower even. To those like 16, 17 kind of marks. Like, I'm not a chart guy, but I'm actually fairly really surprised that Bitcoin's kind of held its own here for a while with all the things going on the macro landscape with Russia's and Ukraine's and wars and things, and just bond markets blowing up across the pond and just everything. Like, it's all kind of coming together here. So maybe still some downward pressure, I would say, maybe. And if that happens, well, I'm maxing out some cards. So let me see it. Let me see 15K. Do it. Go for it. I'll max out my cards and I'll get my sats. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and I think, like, if everybody kind of knows the fundamentals and has gone through that that part of their journey, they're along the same boats. But I think it is kind of interesting that, like you said, we're floating along right now, and it's raising the question for me that Bitcoin might have started the decoupling, because in Q3 of this year, Bitcoin was up 3.1%. The next closest positive thing was precious metals were up like 1.2, cash was like 0.2, and everything else, literally everything else, was negative. And the thing that was most negative were REITs, were minus 12.9%, almost 13%. So any kind of equity, large cap, small cap, commodities, tips, corporate bonds, everything else, everything under the sun was negative this quarter. But Bitcoin was slightly positive. And so it kind of raises a question like, why is that happening? Why are all these miners kind of coming on? Are people just, kind of flocking towards this, I guess, asset, commodity, whatever you want to call it? And it seems like people are kind of catching on, and they're trying to put their money into a safe haven asset or safe haven place where they can control, and there's no third party, and they don't care about the price action floating around 20K when the all-time high was 69K. So I think like more and more people are kind of getting on your boat, and myself included. And are you kind of noticing that too when you're talking to your other fellow plebs that are going to the Van City meetup, or do you get more people that are kind of, I guess, down in the dumps about the price?
No, not really down in the. I mean, everyone, people that are maybe been in it longer, they're probably, they're still maybe above water. People that's, like me. I mean, I don't know when I think my first purchase was maybe around like 18, I think, or something like that. But I bought the whole way up, all the way to 69, and I bought the whole way down all the way to today. And I buy it every day now. I just DCA. That's it just takes the thought, trying to buy dips and highs and lows and timing the market. It's not easy. So most people that I speak to, everyone's chilling, man. Everyone's stoked that it's down. When it was at 50 and 60 and almost 70, like I was feeling like it. Well, it happened to me. I was like, the higher it went, the more I went into it. I was like, it's too bad it wasn't reversed, because as it started to go up, I'm like, oh, this thing it's gone. It's going to, it's going to 250, right? So yeah, as it was getting higher, I was putting bigger chunks in, and then suddenly we had a bit of a correction. But that's okay. I mean, one Bitcoin's still worth one Bitcoin last time I checked. So, it's nice to get, kind of start to kind of average it out a little bit here now that it's down around 20. I mean, it's almost pretty much where it was when I started buying Bitcoin. And as that thing started to rip, I was like, oh my God, I wish it was, I should have. And we're right where I should have. So I'm like, I'm taking this opportunity as a blessing and stacking. I just wished I'd held on to a little bit more dry powder at those higher levels, because I'd be a little more happier now. But it is what it is, man. It's weird when you, so what did you say, 3.1% Bitcoin was up Q3? Does it feel like that to you? Doesn't it feel like we weren't in the green, that we would have been in the red? But I mean, I guess
I think like the low was like what, 18% or 18K or something like that. I mean, it doesn't feel that weird to me, because at 3% at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't even notice the spike, because of how volatile Bitcoin is. And I don't really watch the price too much. The only time I see the price is, when it's ripping, of course, and people on Twitter are freaking out and, dancing on graves and posting memes and doing all that stuff. So of course the bull market's a lot more fun to be on the internet. But, I think, like you said, like it's people are still kind of getting in and stacking. And, you're seeing things like your meetup started 6 months ago, right? So, I mean, it's been basically in a bear market almost the whole time.
Dude, that's the other thing that's just like really surprising to me, man, is like, there was 175, 80 people coming to see Jeff and Greg and Samson, like, and it's a bear market, and people are feeling it. I mean, I don't know. I think I need a bigger venue. If we were, up around 150 and we were still freaking out and everyone was still, was still on that trajectory. Like, I think it would be a lot more people. So I think that's good, man. That just kind of shows me that it's something that people are interested in. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that are coming to the meetup, but there's people coming to that meetup with a book in hand, like taking notes. I stood over a girl. If she's watching this, you're really cute. I'm going to say hi to you next time. She had her little book, and she was kind of beside the camera. And this was, I think, at Greg Foss. And, just kind of, him and Seb Bunny kind of started at, some basics, right? Like fixed cap, 21 million, did it? And I was standing at the camera and I looked over her shoulder And that was like her first foray into Bitcoin. I can almost guarantee it, because she was writing that down, fixed cap, 21 million, like really basic things. So I mean, there's brand new first time wondering about Bitcoin, walking into these meetups, and then you got people that have been in it for a decade and more. But yeah, I think I'm bullish, buddy.
Exactly, same here. The best time to get into Bitcoin was the day it started, but the second best time's today. So if you're listening to this or somewhat curious, be sure to look into it and go to those meetups and support it. Because obviously we got plebs like yourself, Fussler, getting in there and getting in the weeds and putting in a lot of effort onto these meetups. And obviously they've been really successful, and you're getting a lot of people coming out. And like we said before, if you build it, they will come. So, on that note, you've been very generous with your time. So why don't you tell everybody, remind us when the meetup is, how they could find it, and what all you got going on.
Will do. And right before I do that, because there was one thing that I was going to mention, and we just skipped over it. Just going back for a minute to the was it BNY Melon or whatever, the bank? Did you see? I don't know if you saw this, but did you see Caitlin Long on stage yesterday? I believe. So it's called Custodia, I think, is her.
Yeah,
her
it's Custodia Bank.
Custodia, right? She's got a lawsuit against the Fed that's been ongoing, and she's been waiting 2 years already, almost to the day. It's like within like a month or something, like 2 years to get that same designation. And the Fed goes and gives that to the oldest bank. Like, watch what they do, know what they say, I guess. Like that was pretty surprising to me. So I'm assuming that's now going into the lawsuit, and interesting to see how that pans out. So it's just something I wanted to add, because I thought that was really interesting that just on that news that they were going to go into this custodying Bitcoin, and she's been waiting 2 years, and it's been a no, and it's supposed to take like a few weeks, and it's been 2 years. So just something that I recalled. So I wanted to add that.
Yeah, exactly. And we have Kyle that he jumps into the spaces a lot on Fridays, and he works at Custodia Bank. So I know he can't give us the full insights on that, but that's definitely something that we could bring up to him next time we get on Twitter spaces and kind of talk to him about, because I'm sure he's got some interesting insight as somebody who works at Custodia. So shout out to Kyle.
Cool. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. It's at Fussler_. If you want to, that's my sort of my private one. And BTC Van City is the meetup, also on Twitter. If you're in Vancouver or you're ever going to travel here, just go to meetups.com and look for BTC Van City on there. Maybe there's a meetup happening when you're in town. Next one is November 11. So that's the next one, and I'll announce that pretty soon once I lock down a couple things. I'm gonna reach out to Preston once more and see if I can pencil him in at least, and then maybe I'll have Bitcoin Mechanic as well come in and have maybe a couple of those guys for the night. So we will see. That'll be announced as soon as I figure out what that's gonna look like. And yeah, man, this has been really fun, man. It's good to see you again, Brandon. Hope to see you again. Are you going to any meetups? Conferences? Are you going to go to? I forget. Are you in Miami? Where are you?
So I'm in Tampa. So I'm Tampa. Close to Miami. So I'll probably be at the next Bitcoin Miami. I think that's in May. I haven't had any plans for any other conferences just yet. I may go to some other ones here or there, but yeah, I'm doing a little bit of traveling personally, and then like I said, I'm in New York right now, and obviously the holidays are coming up, so I haven't really thought too much about early next year, but obviously I'm open to some of it, and I do want to make a trip to Canada eventually. But I'm a wuss, man. I gotta wait till it gets warmer, so I'm gonna probably wait till like the summertime or something like that.
Well, I don't know if you saw it. It wasn't really supposed to be sad, because it's more of an idea and some things that I'm kind of working on to see if it's actually feasible. It's a lot of work, and it would be a full-time thing. I'd probably have to quit my job to actually pull it off. But shout out to Crypto Mags. She put a tweet out yesterday saying that, because we were at a party together on Friday. It was that mint green mining company turned 5. So we were at the same party, and we were just shooting the shit. And I mentioned that I'm thinking about maybe a conference, and maybe to do that in Whistler, and do like a Whistler winter Bitcoin conference in, that destination, which is beautiful, and get some people to come and ski and snowboard and do a conference. And then she tweeted it out. So now it's I've got a lot of DMs coming in. So little premature on that, but if it happens, I'll take care of you, man. I'll put you up on a couch or something you could crash on. So
yeah, that'd be great. And I'll have to buy like 5 more winter coats or something like that to wrap
you need
because I'm a Florida boy, man. So
yeah.
I have one. I think I have one winter coat that's like tucked away in a closet or maybe in my attic or something. So I'll have to dust it off. Just
all right.
Canada, but yeah, I definitely want to come up and come and visit, see the meetups, and yeah, if you guys have a Bitcoin Canadian conference up there, I'll definitely have to make a trip up.
Nice, man. Do it. Yeah, I got you.
All right, man. Sounds good. Well, on that note, everybody go to the Van City Meetup. Go check out everything that's going on with Fussler. And yeah, man, go to your local meetups if you're not in Canada or Vancouver area, and support those local plebs.
Yeah, man. And start one if it doesn't exist. Just the friends that I've got from this, that's the most rewarding thing. It's cool having these big names come in and, get to meet them and whatever. But honestly, it's seeing the connections that are happening at them. We've got people that work for Lightning Labs that are at our meetups. We got, multiple of them. We got miners. We've got a pretty cool ecosystem here in Vancouver. And just watching dots connect and people, like JB55, Will, like, another solid coder. So yeah, it's cool, man. Like I've been throwing barbecues here outside on this deck and having all these people come, and it's just like I got like a whole new like friend base. And it's hard, like people, I'm sure you've probably felt it, and most Bitcoiners do. You're usually the black sheep, maybe of the family, or your normie friends. If you find it and they're not into it, like you're kind of, when it sort of starts, when you find it, or Bitcoin finds you, and you realize what you're actually dealing with and what its implications can be globally, and fix the money, fix the world. Like that's not just kind of some bullshit. I think that's got some serious teeth to it. So when you get into that world, and you're in that hole, you feel like you're alone sometimes, and it's really nice to be able to walk into a room, whether it's 5 people or 10 people, and just know that they're there because of Bitcoin, and just have that base layer of sort of that Bitcoin that kind of holds all of you down, and sort of the rock. And it's very easy to just start talking to people and have a conversation, because you're all coming at it from a similar sort of viewpoint. So it's really rewarding, I'd say. So yeah, do it, create a little one, and you get some probably lifelong friends out of it. And it's happening to me. So if it can to me, then it can definitely to you as well. So yeah, man.
Yeah, get off your butt and get it started. Show that proof of work.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll end it. So thanks so much, Fussler. And we'll have to do this again. And maybe we'll do something. I don't know. Maybe when I come to Canada, I'll have the capabilities to do something live. And
yeah, man.
That way.
100%. I think our last live video was with giants, right? And we were eating babies and
yeah, exactly.
Drinking
a little man on the street video. So
yeah.
All right, man.
Nice, man. We'll stay in touch, bud. We'll talk to you soon on the internets. And yeah, dude, if you ever want to come to Vancouver, man, you hit me up, man.
All right, man. Will do. Have a good one.
All right.